Imagine waking up in Athens, grabbing your frappe, and hearing the news. Turkey just doubled its troops in Northern Cyprus to over 100,000. Meanwhile, Ankara's politicians are waving maps claiming half the Aegean Sea as theirs, thanks to their beloved blue Homeland doctrine. For Greece, that's like someone barging into your kitchen, stealing your olive oil, and insisting your grandmother's baklava recipe was theirs all along. The Eastern Mediterranean, once famous for sunny vacations and overpriced cocktails in Mykonos, is now looking more like the world's next flashpoint. Turkey and Greece are at it again, two NATO allies who spend more time fighting each other than helping the alliance. And this latest escalation, it's the biggest military buildup on Cyprus since the 1974 invasion. So let's dive into why Turkey's moving troops, why Greece is furious, and why the rest of NATO is holding its head in its hands, wondering, why can't these two just chill? To really understand today's drama, you've got to rewind. Cyprus has been divided since 1974, when Turkey invaded after a Greek-backed coup. Ever since, Northern Cyprus has been run by a Turkish-supported government that nobody but Turkey recognizes. The south remains Greek Cypriot, internationally recognized, and yes, full of people still annoyed their favorite beaches got cut off by barbed wire. For decades, UN peacekeepers have babysat the buffer zone, while Greece and Turkey kept up their tradition of constant bickering over airspace, over islands, even over whether feta cheese should come crumbled or in blocks. Spoiler, the EU gave Greece the trademark, but don't tell Turkey, they'll probably issue a NAVTEX about it. This simmering rivalry has flared up again, and it's not just about old grudges anymore. It's about power, energy, and control of the sea. Now, let's talk about Turkey's favorite bedtime story, the Blue Homeland Doctrine. In simple terms, it's Ankara's claim that massive swaths of the Eastern Mediterranean, including areas right off Greek islands, should belong to Turkey. Under this doctrine, Turkey insists it has the right to waters and energy resources that Greece and Cyprus claim as theirs. According to international law, Greek islands, yes, even the tiny ones with more goats than people, generate their own territorial waters and economic zones. Turkey disagrees, basically saying, sorry, but your little rock with one fishing hut doesn't get to block our empire at sea. For Greece, that's not just insulting, it's a direct threat. Imagine spending centuries fighting off everyone, from Persians to Nazis, only for your supposed ally to say, by the way, Santorini's ours now. Fast forward to 2025, and Turkey has turned Northern Cyprus into what looks less like a peacekeeping mission and more like a forward operating base. Their troop levels there have doubled, going from roughly 40,000 to over 100,000. They've stationed Bayraktar drones, Akinci heavy UAVs, Atmaka anti-ship missiles, and even the new Typhoon ballistic missile system, because apparently the view of the Mediterranean isn't complete without rocket launchers. Meanwhile, Greece is firing back. Not literally yet, but with diplomacy, protests, and joint military drills with Israel and Cyprus. Athens recently warned Turkey that if they keep up these maritime land grabs, it might trigger EU sanctions, which in Brussels speak means maybe, possibly, in 10 years, someone's going to be fined. And let's not forget the propaganda war. Social media lit up with claims that Turkey had deployed 250,000 troops to Cyprus. That number spread faster than souvlaki at a summer festival. The reality? Exaggerated. Analysts put it closer to just over 100,000, which is still the biggest escalation since 1974. So while the memes might overshoot, the fact is, this is serious. Here's where things get messy. It's not just Turkey and Greece shouting across the Aegean, other players are jumping in too. Take Israel. They've got offshore gas fields worth billions, and Turkey's new missile deployments in Cyprus put those assets in range. That's why Israel is tightening defense ties with Greece and Cyprus, even floating the idea of an undersea Iron Dome to protect pipelines. Because nothing says Eastern Mediterranean vacation like underwater missile defense systems guarding your scuba dive. Cyprus, the actual island caught in the middle, is basically screaming, "Hello, remember us? We're the ones being divided here." But as usual, its voice is drowned out by the louder neighbors. Southern Cyprus sides with Greece and Israel, while the north is now a heavily armed Turkish base. Meanwhile, NATO has the world's most awkward family reunion problem. Both Greece and Turkey are members. Imagine trying to host Thanksgiving dinner when two cousins keep flipping the table over. The alliance needs both countries against bigger threats, but instead it spends half its time begging them not to sink each other's ships. Now, let's talk law. Don't worry, I'll keep it short before your eyes glaze over. The whole fight boils down to maritime boundaries, and the key referee here is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Greece and Cyprus love unclose, because it says islands generate their own exclusive economic zones. Translation: yes, even that tiny rock with 3 goats gets 200 nautical miles of gas rights. Turkey? They didn't even sign UNCLOS. They argue the treaty is biased, unfair, and basically a Greek plot to steal their fish. Instead, Turkey uses its own interpretation of continental shelf law, which conveniently gives it much more ocean. That's why maps from Ankara and Athens look like they were drawn by 2 different drunk cartographers. Greece's map gives it most of the Aegean and big chunks of the Mediterranean. Turkey's map, under blue Homeland, swallows up waters so aggressively you'd think Erdogan bought a giant blue crayon at the stationery store and went wild. The legal deadlock means neither side is backing down, and every time a Turkish research ship drops anchor, Greek jets scramble. Not exactly a recipe for calm seas. So what happens next? Well, best case scenario, this all stays as loud posturing. Turkey keeps flexing, Greece keeps filing diplomatic protests, and both sides avoid doing anything stupid. Basically, business as usual. The middle scenario? More close calls. We're talking fighter jets buzzing each other over the Aegean, naval ships playing chicken, and Turkish research vessels escorted by warships while Greek frigates shadow them. All it takes is one pilot sneezing on the trigger, and suddenly you've got a shooting incident that spirals out of control. Worst case? A real military clash, with over 100,000 Turkish troops in Cyprus and Greece on high alert. Even a small firefight could escalate fast. Israel, Cyprus, and potentially even Syria could get dragged in, turning the Eastern Mediterranean into a geopolitical soup no one ordered. NATO would be forced to pick sides in a fight between 2 of its own members. Imagine the awkwardness of that Zoom call. So here we are. Turkey has turned Northern Cyprus into its biggest military buildup since 1974, Greece is digging in its heels, and the Eastern Mediterranean is on edge. For Turkey, it's about power projection and rewriting the map. For Greece, it's about defending every last island, even the ones where the goats outnumber the people. And for the rest of us, it's a front row seat to NATO's weirdest soap opera. One side blasting Ottoman-style ambition, the other waving UNCLOS like a holy scripture. If this wasn't deadly serious, it would be comedy. But make no mistake, one wrong move, one accidental clash, and the vacation paradise of the Mediterranean could become the world's next battlefield. So next time you're sipping ouzo by the Aegean, remember, those aren't just fishing boats on the horizon. They might just be the first sparks of something much bigger.